Welcome to the MWR podcast at Fort Carson.
Welcome to the MWR podcast. I'm here with Chris Nunez with the SFAC, and I want to open up with, can you explain what SFAC is to our audience that may not know?
Sure thing. So the SFAC is a Soldier and Family Assistance Center. So what we specialize in is helping those soldiers in the IDAS process, which essentially is the med board process, whether they're medically retiring or separating, and providing them all the necessary guidance for their transitioning.
Okay, awesome. So that's stressful because, they may not know that they're going to be, either leaving or,
Definitely.
they are planning on it. So what is the earliest, I guess, that as soon as they have notification, what can they start doing and, kind of preparing?
Right. So ideally, you can prepare as soon as you officially understand that you're going to be in the med board, that you're in the med board process, and you're assigned a PEBLO. And the PEBLO is the person who coordinates all the medical exams. And then from there, they can officialize the fact that, hey, you're going to be med boarding, and 120 days out, ideally, is when you can start actively doing things, such as requesting a CIF memo, so that way from the commander, from unit command, and you can turn in your CIF, your clothing, your clothing, your equipment, your gear. So that's probably the first step.
Okay, yeah, because technically they're still on duty until they're officially out, correct?
Right.
So they still have to consider that, and that's why it's from the commander.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. So when they start this process and it's the medical and everything, just talking to you about it, it's like that, wow, that's overwhelming. Okay, they're probably stressed out on, just the medical part in itself, and then, okay, what am I going to do? So after that medical process, what guidance do you give them? Like start looking at, finances, things like that?
Yeah, there's a lot of things, obviously a lot of moving pieces. Because one day, you're considering a career in the military, and the next, you're essentially getting out.
Yeah.
So, and once you hit that roster, which is the TransPOC roster, here in Fort Carson is usually 90 days from that point is when you're officially out the Army. Not out of Fort Carson, but separated completely out the Army.
Okay.
So in a matter of time, it goes by super fast.
Yeah.
And during this time, obviously you're clearing, you may have family, you have to clear housing or figure out what's the next move, what's the next step. Are you going to look for employment? Are you going to stay in Colorado? So it's definitely a new chapter in someone's life.
Yeah.
So it's always important to reach out, have all the support necessary in order to increase the likelihood of success.
Yeah, that's a good point. So are you the kind of counselor that directs them to other people or give them guidance on some of those aspects?
Definitely a guidance factor.
Okay.
But essentially what we do is once the soldier hits the TransPOC roster, that the name pops up on that roster. We check that roster daily, even twice a day.
Oh, wow.
And then we reach out to that service member and say, hey, you've hit the roster, and now it's time for you to do a leave calculation. So what we're doing with them is we're letting them know, hey, you're going to start clearing by this day. You're going to take this leave, whether it's permissive, whether it's terminal leave. And at that point, hopefully they're prepared to hear those things. 9 out of 10 times they are not. So they're overwhelmed.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And then that's where you refer them to other resources.
Exactly. So, there's so many other resources that we have in-house at the SFAC, along with those in the community that we can, we're familiar with, so we can help out. There's Wounded Warrior Project that we work a lot with. There's a representative at the SFAC from Wounded Warrior Project. There's Pikes Peak War Force.
Okay.
So the Workforce Center is very, very actively involved as well.
And they help with spouses too?
Help with spouses, help with employment, so variety of questions. Usually one of the big components is employment. Are we going to work along with what's the next step with them going to school? Are you using Voc Rehab? Are you using Post 9/11? So we like to answer and guide them in all those avenues and questions they may have.
Yeah, that's a good point because, getting here, even as a spouse, I didn't know what resources that we had, even with the kids, and, understanding local policies and everything like that. So, well, and now that you touched on some of those resources, can you expand on some of the resources that you can guide people to on post and off post, either prior, and can they still utilize those resources when they're out? I think that's a big question.
It is definitely a big question. So if you're a retiree, just like active duty service members, you can tap into mostly, if not all, the resources in-house. That's the guideline.
Okay.
If you're medically separated, you're a veteran, then not so much.
Okay.
However, we do live in Colorado Springs, which is a huge military community with countless veteran service organizations and agencies, nonprofits that can help in all various ways. And we're all familiar with those. So at Desk Fact, we're definitely familiar with what's out there and how to connect the dots to ensure they're relevant resources. They're going to do what they say they're going to do.
Yeah.
And help out in whatever way the soldier, the family is needed, that support.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because, you hear about, is this a good resource? Mm-hmm. This way it's kind of vetted. You guys are going to definitely guide somebody in the right direction.
Yeah, that's the hope. That's the plan.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And then it's just on them to kind of want to go from there.
Right. And then we'll follow up with them as well because, again, there's a lot of moving pieces, becoming overwhelmed with the situation in itself, but then now having to do all this, changing their lifestyle, then we'll follow up with them to make sure, hey, did you contact this person? Is there anything else we can provide you with, any guidance or support?
Yeah. Well, that's, I have to say, an awesome resource because I couldn't imagine myself. So one big question I had was, this process is so overwhelming, everybody. You have a tendency to procrastinate, put things off that you don't want to be doing.
Right.
So at what point should the soldiers start really preparing themselves, even though they don't have a definitive this is happening or not?
Yeah, so once the soldier knows that they're in a med board process, that should already trigger something for them to start thinking, okay, my life's going to change. My life can change from a timeline standpoint. It can change within, we'll say, 5 to 6 months. So that's a working kind of timeline where you can think, okay, I need to start getting all my affairs in order. Once they officially have been notified by the Pueblo, like, yes, you're definitely going to med board, you're going to medically separate or retire, that's going to be determined later when they actually receive their ratings. But once they really know that they're going to med board, then they can start kind of grasping everything, speaking to their significant other, their family, and essentially getting all their affairs in order. Okay. Because by the time they speak to the SFAC and we're breaking down their leave calculations, and next time we have that conversation, they're going to be clearing essentially from Fort Carson within probably 7 to 10 days.
Wow. And that's not enough time to interview.
Not at all.
That's not enough time to do any of that.
Right.
Okay. Wow. So that's a good point then. As soon as you know you're in the process, you need to start processing mentally and preparing and checking out schools and things like that, just to in case kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, there's so many factors involved, obviously, again, your military chapter may come to an end for whatever reason, but now it's a new chapter in your life and definitely need to explore all the opportunities, all the resources, and all the support. And we're definitely here to be able to guide you through that process.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to thank you for sharing, this opportunity and getting some of the information out. Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Thank you for your time. But also, another way to kind of be proactive is we also have SFAC virtual briefs. So we've because of COVID, due to COVID, usually we have these briefs in person. Okay. But now we've had them online. They're on our NWR website, so you can tap into the website, look at those briefs, and any questions that you as a service member may have, the family member, because we encourage the service member to obviously view these briefs with the family member, the spouse, significant other.
That's good to know.
So then, we can have the conversation. They can call us. We can ask any questions and really go from there. Okay. So that's another way to kind of stay proactive. And we're always there throughout the support system from the initial push when they hit the roster up until they separate officially from the service. And sometimes we even get calls from service members that have already been out for months to years. Oh, that's awesome.
Okay. Well, we'll have to share with our audience that link on our platforms. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and appreciate you.
Yeah.
Giving us info.
Thanks.